your intention is to create like a really intimate, sweet evening, you're not going to invite the one friend who has like dominating energy and who controls all the conversations, right? Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Welcome to Inner Archaeology. I'm Sarah Turner.
And I'm Emily Pennystone. Thanks for tuning in with us today. And you can find us all sorts of places, innerarchaeology.tv and .com. We're streaming pretty much everywhere. Also video podcasts if you want to see our faces too.
And YouTube. YouTube and Patreon, patreon.com/innerarchaeology. Anyway, we're everywhere.
We're everywhere, and subscribe, please. Thank you.
Yes. And leave us reviews if you like us. If you don't leave us reviews. Just don't listen.
Keep it to yourself, okay?
I'm joking. You can leave us some constructive feedback.
Oh my gosh.
We're open. We're open. Yeah, okay. I want to talk about something, but I don't know what to call it or what it is, and it's weird.
I love it. This is going to be like an experimental. I love when we do this though. Like in real time, we kind of try to unpack an idea, and a lot of times we figure stuff out as we go, which I just love that we do that. Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like this is like how our conversations sound like.
This is
like a lot of them.
Yeah.
I come to you and I'm like, help, sort my brain.
Yeah.
What is this? And you ask me questions and then we get somewhere. Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Okay, so this has been on my mind a lot lately. Okay, we all have groups of friends, right? And so you'll be thinking about, okay, I want to go out to dinner with some of my friends. I used to be like, invite everyone always. Mm-hmm. That used to be how I was. And then as I kind of got older, I started realizing that like each individual person changes the dynamic of the group completely. So it's like if you take 5 people, you know what I mean, and you have people 1, 2, and 3, like that's a different dynamic. I mean, not always, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's like a dramatic shift that more so than others, you know what I mean, depending on the personality. Mm-hmm. And then you add in person 4 and it's like a completely different vibe. And then you add in person 5 and it's a whole nother vibe. So as I've gotten older, especially actually a big part of this was kind of brought to the forefront with event planning, where I realized that the people that attend an event also very much create the event.
Yeah.
And we really experienced that with the mastermind, right? Mm-hmm. With the students that came together, like they co-created that event with us and it was gorgeous.
Yes.
And so much of it was how gorgeous all those people were. They were just like wonderful humans. And then I read this book called The Art of Gathering a long time ago, probably like 5 years ago. And I think watch me find out it like came out 3 years ago. But in there she actually talks about intentional exclusion is what I think she calls it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting like concept. And it was really important for me because it gave me permission, because like anytime I would like host an event, like let's say the mastermind, and people would be like, oh, can I invite my spouse? And I would have a hard time saying no, because I would think to myself, oh, I'm a more the merrier kind of person, right? But then I would think, you know, well, if you invite people who aren't a part of the conversation we're going to be having or have the context, or like it's going to like affect the experience of others. And her, like in this book, her like argument or her point is kind of like, you're actually like, when you allow just anyone into a space, especially when you're trying to intentionally create a particular experience,
right,
you're actually doing the other people a disservice by allowing this person in who doesn't quite like fit the vibe.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it also kind of like presses against the part of me who's like thinks about like inclusivity and just like, you know what I mean? Just the idea of excluding anyone like feels icky.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I've come to really see the value in it, especially when you're trying to create something intentional. And taking it one step further, like, I don't know, now sometimes when we're trying to do like a game night or dinner or something like that, like I'll say to Ben, I'm like, I want to invite these people. And he'll be like, cool, let's invite all these people too. And I'm like, the reason I want to invite those people like separately at another time is because I'm trying to like do this over here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess I just like it's been like a really important thing for me to kind of like work through, especially as I've like built out my team and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um because I just one person can have such an impact on others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, jump in here. My brain's starting to
Well,
feel like
I think that it makes so much sense that so it's really interesting just
help.
knowing you and knowing
Uh-huh.
that this is an area that has been like specifically like highlighted, and you've been very interested and invested in curating and atmospheres and like energetic
Mhm.
space for people, and this is like a gift of yours. And I think that with this new, you're moving into this like space of leadership, and now it makes so much sense that you're trying to really understand energetic dynamics that happen in a group,
Mhm.
especially if
Mhm.
there's a goal, for the group, and you being much more
Mhm.
aware, because there's a level of awareness when you're like the host, and then now you're like a leader. It's like an even more level of like awareness, I think, of energy dynamics, and like noticing what is impactful and how things shift and flow and change, and trying to like understand that, and how do you help guide and how do you help curate all of that, which makes sense that this is like highlighting for you, you know?
Mhm. And I think it's also like I think the reason I wanted to talk about it is again because of the permission I felt from that book. Like
Yeah.
even the shared interest that I've created in the community, you know, for example, there's a group for moms and some people have like reached out to me. There's also a group for for dads and parents, and some people have reached out to me like, why isn't it just parents? It should be inclusive. And I like literally like this keeps me up at night because it's this question, right? Like yes, we live in a world where we're being more inclusive. I feel like this is a super important thing to me, but there's also this important idea over here that feels like not necessarily politically correct, but it still feels really like
Mm.
valuable. And I also think that we sometimes like swing really hard one direction.
Yes.
Whereas I just think that sometimes it is okay to create a space that is for a particular group of people for them to have that safe space. You know what I
Just
mean? Because it's like,
intentionality. Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that what tends to happen or what I'm seeing, and I'm feeling myself feeling kind of uncomfortable saying this out loud, even
Uh-huh.
because it's so in conflict with like a lot of the conversation around today and also like some of my core beliefs. But I think that I don't know, like I think that it's important sometimes for people to be differentiated for some of like their roles or what they're trying to accomplish, and to be able to give them like a safe space to like have conversations around those things. And
Yeah.
it's like every time you just make it we're all the same always, which isn't true ultimately. um you're actually ignoring like basic human like differences.
Mm.
And I mean that just like energetically mostly.
Mm.
Like you're not it's like you're like refusing to acknowledge the fact that I don't know, like I don't know. This is something I like think about a lot.
The need to feel understood by people who are similar to you, I think, is like the
Yeah.
creating a space that you can be seen and understood, like for example by other moms, specifically by other moms, not by other dads necessarily, and maybe there's another space for that, but
Another
I think it does.
parents, right? Mm-hmm.
Exactly. I think it does make sense that there is a level of vulnerability that you can go into when you are in a group of like-minded people, that there's like enough
Mm-hmm.
similarities and enough connection that it is conductive to a level of vulnerability that you otherwise wouldn't engage in. It would completely change the dynamic, you know? So for
Mm-hmm.
instance, I'm part of a women's circle, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
women's circle because we specifically want to intentionally connect as women. And if men were
Mm-hmm.
to be part of that circle, we would not talk about any of the things we currently talk about, because it is like this
Mm-hmm.
very sacred, curated, intentional gathering, so that we can talk about
Mm-hmm.
experiences, like deep experiences of being a woman, you know? And so I
Mm-hmm.
think like because we are in it is tricky because we are in such
It's
a
so
it's a
tricky,
tricky
right?
thing. I think this is one of those circumstances where it's both and like
Right.
like
That makes
all the
sense.
things can exist at the same time, and that you can have intentional curated
And it's
space, and you can have like inclusivity and acceptance, and but it
mhm.
doesn't have to be all one way or all the other, you know.
And I think that's the mistake that's made sometimes, is some people think that if you're not always inclusive, then you are exclude, then therefore
It's
you're
only a
like not
binary.
thinking in that. Yeah, and it's like that's not true. That's like kind of missing like like a lot of nuance.
Hmm.
And ultimately, like, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, I think there's like most people need a space to kind of like gather and connect with people that have similarities to them. Um, and I don't know. It's just like, it's such a like, I don't know. I think this is an area in which I think people have swung really hard one direction and they're missing nuances.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, that book like really like again, I think the word that I use in my mind is like intentional exclusion in creating a space. And it's something that like, I don't know, it just like, it really like, it literally like keeps me up at night. Like I'm just
Hmm.
like, is this wrong? Am I being wrong by like not making it just like everyone? Or and I'm but I keep coming back to like, no, because I think that, I don't know, even if you were like a non-binary parent and you didn't want to be called a mom or a dad, like you should have a group for that too, so that you can meet, because that's a very specific experience, right? Like,
Hmm.
and that's going to be, I don't know, I just, it's so tricky, and it's like, uh, yeah,
I think
it's
like maybe
something
the
my brain
question
is
is
working
like,
on.
what is the intention of the gathering? Because like if
Right.
the
And
if the
that's the whole
intention
point.
yeah, if the intention of the gathering is to be expansive and like see from different perspectives and feel like and have your beliefs challenged and stuff like that, by
Mm-hmm.
all means throw everybody together. Like that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
If your intention for the group is like safe, is like a sense of like being seen, feeling known, and feeling like a level of safety
Mm-hmm.
to
This
be
is
able
it.
to be vulnerable. Like, and I think the thing is like you get to decide what that intention is, and there's nobody else that can say like that's right or wrong. And if your intention is to create like a really intimate, like sweet evening, you're not going to invite the one friend who has like dominating energy and who controls all the conversations, right? That might be for another event or another thing that you're doing. And I think like it's like just giving yourself permission to, not only are you like emotionally intelligent enough to be able to observe and recognize those things, but like that you were saying that book says, you're intentionally creating something which is like a gift to these people, and that would be a disservice if you were trying to do something and then, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
And I think that's the thing too, is like, I think that like this was something I was kind of innately doing with like events and gatherings, and even like friendship gatherings, and like, I don't know, just like the type of people, like bringing people together for certain things. And it's something actually, because my mom is like more the merrier always, and it's something that I actually would sometimes get like a little like, I would be like, yeah, but when you do that, like you like kind of like negatively impact these people over here. So I think that's also why it's been like top of mind for me like my whole life.
Because you've, yeah,
But I guess it's just
experienced it.
like, yeah, I've experienced the negative impacts.
Hmm.
Negative's too strong, but like, you know, just like the less than ideal impacts of always inviting, of always including everyone and everything. Like it just like, it prevents creating differences in like little communities and little gatherings and little
And I
experiences,
think like
right?
it
It
removes
makes it all the same,
yeah,
rather than making these like little pockets
unique
of
highlights.
intentional
Yes, I like
like
that way of seeing
unique
it.
energy. And that's something that it's so funny to me how hard I'm struggling to like put all these thoughts into words. um yeah, I don't know. And then the other thing, wait, what were you gonna say? I feel like you were gonna say something.
I think I was just saying like a level of like intimacy. That like
Yeah.
intimacy is a portion of that, because I was just like thinking, because I also identify with like being in family settings and having like outside people being invited into that, and it removed the ability for like the family to have our like intimate family weirdness together.
Oh, 100%.
And we couldn't do that then because there was all these other people that was inserting different
Think
dynamics.
about it. When you're just surrounded by like your siblings and your parents, like your level of comfort is like max.
Yes.
Well, kind of. You know what I mean? Like in the sense that like
familiarity.
You're not feeling like you need to like ask them questions and like how are you doing? But like and then you bring in like a somewhat stranger or just like a new friend, and then you have to I anyway feel like the pressure or whatever to be like, so how are you? Blah blah blah. Or what ends up happening is I'm like, I'm not here to fucking entertain you. So I'm like, don't barely talk
Sink
to
or swim, man.
Yeah, I'm just like, this is just like welcome or whatever. And I've like been in both attitudes, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And then like another flip side of this that I've also been thinking a lot about, because I've been in situations and groups where I'm like, okay, this is the energy. Maybe it feels a little weird. And then I will sometimes remind myself how much like one person can impact a group.
Yeah.
And I will like take on an energy and try to like impart it into the group to impact like the dynamic. And I don't think a lot of people think of that either. Like I think people tend to like go into groups and just kind of be at the mercy of like what's being created
pulled
in front
along
of them.
in the current. Yeah.
And I think that's normal. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's like our default, right? But I have been intentionally thinking about how can I, like if there's a vibe that I'm like not into, like what can I do to change the vibe? Usually more often than not, it's like being silly and self-deprecating.
Yeah, totally.
Because that's what like lightens everyone's mood.
And I do think that there are people that are more like, I do agree that for the most part, the default is like being conductive to like whatever collective energy is there. But there are certain people that like defining the energy. And I think that it could potentially be a level of social anxiety where they need to actually control the energy and they need to have control over the conversation.
It's usually often an insecurity, I feel like I've found.
Yes. And so I think that, and the interesting thing is like, I've experienced both within myself. Like I definitely have gone into like situations or dates or things where I've just been like a million miles an hour because like I felt uncomfortable or I really wanted to feel safe in like the conversation. And but that's interesting. So there's like a level of control there, but then there's on the other side of it where you're just kind of at the mercy of like whatever the flow of things are. There's a level of, I don't know if it's like passivity, but I feel like what you're talking about is being just like a really active curator of the energy. And especially when it's like creating like nice energy and good energy and busting through like awkwardness or something, you know?
I don't know that it's passivity because I think that it's like almost like natural human dynamics to kind of like fall in line with whatever energy is being created so that you're not like kicked out. Do you know what I mean?
More of like a tribal kind of.
I think it's more tribal. Like I think it's more like,
I like that.
Okay, this is like what's going on here. And now I'm going to kind of like fall into place because if I'm too much of a disruptor, and this is for most people, right? Like there are disruptors, there are people who like do the opposite. But I think most people like sense a vibe, try to fit in with that vibe, like literally purely out of like primal instinct of like fitting into like a tribe and not wanting to be like kicked out. But then there are the people, and I think this is another thing that I've been thinking about a lot, because then there are people who are like not as aware of the vibe. And those people tend to make everyone else uncomfortable because they're like, they're speaking out of turn. They're just like not in tune. They're insensitive. And yeah, I think sometimes it comes from insecurity. I do think though that sometimes it comes from just like, I don't know. I have friends where I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's like a like Asperger-y thing. You know what I mean? I think it's like a genuine lack of awareness.
Just missing social cues.
Yeah, just like missing social cues. Like I actually don't think that it's like necessarily always from insecurity or trying to control the vibe. I think it's like a like genuine lack of like
Connecting to
just
the
like
thing. Yeah.
like observing. And those people, it's actually so interesting to me because like if you think about it, those people typically make other people so uncomfortable purely because they're missing social cues.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like we've all
Yeah.
been in that situation where like
Mm-hmm.
somebody is just like way talking out of turn, just like not matching the energy of the conversation, over talking, oversharing, and
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, "Ugh."
It is
Like
hard.
what's
What do you
happening?
do in that
And it's
situation? I don't
painfully
know. Yeah.
well, what I try to remind myself is like, because it, again, I really think it's such a primal thing that, like, when you can remember that, it's like, okay, this is just being kicked up because we're like, oh, this is the person that would normally be like kicked out of the tribe because we're like, you're fucking weird. And like, you don't,
Yeah.
you'd be like kicked out in like tribal times, you know? Um, but we're like, we're more evolved, I hope. And we're,
Yeah.
but like, in some ways, we're not. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I think that that reaction to that experiencing happening in front of you is so visceral because it's so primal. And sometimes even like really accepting people have to remind themselves that like, oh, this like discomfort is because they're not like falling in line with the tribe
Yeah.
and the vibe.
And
And
there's
it's like
sometimes the tribe and the vibe. There's
the
sometimes
tribe
because
vibe.
like I feel like I've been on the receiving end of that energy a bunch, because I'm a pretty like accepting, whatever, easy to talk to
Yeah,
person. So
yeah.
I've been on like the receiving end of some like uh awkward like rants and monologues, and sometimes I'm just like a lot of times I click into just like I don't know. This is maybe my Enneagram 4, where I'm like, I'm in a sitcom, like this, I'm in a sitcom or something like that. This is a movie. And I just go right there with them. Tell me about it. Like, let's go there. Let's like talk about this weird thing I know nothing about and that has nothing to do with anything that's happening, but this is where your brain is at. And you know
Right,
what?
right.
Honestly, like shifting gears with somebody and giving them like the opportunity to like word vomit all over me. I've heard some fucking amazing stories and like really like weird ideas
I
and shit.
bet.
And it's just kind of like when I can there's certain energies I can be in where I can just be super like conductive to that and just like there with that person and just being with them. And then there's sometimes where I'm just like I can't like do
Yeah.
the
I
thing and
think
I need
that's
to remove
important.
myself.
Wait, this is another important next step is that I don't think you have to do anything all one way or the other.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't always have to be an intentionally exclusive gathering. It doesn't have to be an intentionally like completely inclusive gathering. It doesn't have to be uh a moment in which you're trying to control the energy of the group or influence, I should say, not control.
Mhm.
uh you can have times where you're like, let's just get weird and see what's going on here,
See
and then
what's
you
going to
have times where you're
happen.
like, I do not have the capacity for your like whatever the fuck is going on right
Right.
now.
Right.
And
Totally.
all of those things happen. It's actually
Mhm.
really funny. Ben and I have a thing that we say when our energies aren't matching,
Mhm.
and so sometimes it like creates conflict because like, I don't know, one of us is real amped and one of us is like real like low or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're just like, our energies are not matching right now. So we're just going to like reconvene at a later time.
Yeah. Time out. Isn't it
Because
so
like,
interesting that like we're having this like overlap in like energetic communication that's happening on this
mm-hmm,
like subconscious level all the time. And
mm-hmm.
and there's not really like a ton that I'm aware of a ton of like languaging around how do you
Yes,
understand this type of it's like energetic intelligence, and there's all of this
yes,
information
yes.
being exchanged constantly, and we're all just really subconsciously like reacting to it. And then sometimes you become like really aware of it and you become aware that somebody is like really activated and they've got this like really big energy that's dominating, and I can see it's getting on people. And is there something I can do to help like guide this or soften this, or like do I just go
Mm-hmm.
with the flow? And I mean, because for me, every time this is just like a thought that comes to mind, but nothing will drain me quicker than a bunch of people like doing a dick swinging like political like argument with each other. Like I, as soon as that starts happening, I don't know how many situations I've been in where I have tried to be the disruptor so much. I have tried, like, in those conversations, I've just tried to like insert the like, isn't it funny how none of this like really actually fucking matters or whatever. I've just been trying to be like difficult in those situations, and usually it doesn't, like, I don't know. I'm just have so many memories going through my head of like watching the whole group of people go there and me
I've
just
literally like
the
left.
life leaving my eyes and my eyes glazing over. I'll just be like, okay, I get up and leave and I go to like anything else. Cause that, for whatever, that also sports, like I can't do like when it's like the sports bubble too of conversation. Oh, but that one's a little hard for me. Anyway, it's just my preference. Okay. But there's something about, I am all in for a conversation in which people are willing to hear other people.
100%.
Like when it's actually a conversation.
When people are just not listening, it's like, I gotta go.
I do not want to be part of anything. It happens in politics. It can happen. There's areas that it shows up more often. And I just, when it's not a conversation, but just a series of monologues, that gets like real boring for me real quick. And I usually check out of that pretty fast.
No, I agree. I've like literally like physically removed myself from conversation. I'm like, that's why I love hosting things. I'm like, I'm just going to go like clean some dishes.
It's something needs to be cleaned. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
No, I'm glad we're talking about this. And it's true. We're missing vocabulary where there's no word, there's not words. But I think this is kind of happening across the board, is that everybody is becoming more aware of this. It's something we were always aware of, right? Subconsciously. But I think we're like talking about it more, which is why I kind of wanted to talk about it, because I think about it. I think about this stuff like daily. And so I don't know. It'll just be fun to see, because I feel like words are being created all the time to explain the things we're realizing, especially along the lines of like emotional intelligence and energetic intelligence, I feel like is what this is. Yeah. It's also weird. I don't know if you have people like this in your life, but I have some where they like think they're energetically intelligent and they're like some of the least aware people you've ever met. Like that one is a giant question mark for me. I'm always like, what the fuck? Or, you know what I always wonder is, I'm like, are we in two different worlds? Like that's literally what I wonder.
Just perceiving reality completely different.
Yeah, I have one friend in particular, like from like we're not really like, we just like have lost touch. But she like really thinks that she is so energetically in tune with like everything going around her, and she is like the most out of touch person I've like, one of the most out of touch people I've like ever met. And it's so
maybe she's just on a different dimension or something. I don't know.
The disconnect like blows my mind. And so I've just been like, we're in different worlds. I don't know. There's a Father John Misty song about a person like this. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think it's from the I Love You Honey Bear.
It's like literally where he says like,
yes, where it's like, oh, I wish I could think of the lyrics because they're so good. I remember hearing the song and I was like, oh my God, there's a song about these people.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
He says that he does say literally, something about the cosmos and and then she overdoses in his bathtub, I think.
Yeah.
And the song, like doing drugs. Wait, are you looking it up?
Yes.
Good. I'm like, I need to know. Because this is like, honestly, like when I heard this song, I was like, oh, this is a thing. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. He really like just tears into this like archetype.
Yes.
I just love the kind of woman who can walk over a man. I mean, like a goddamn marching band. She says, like, literally, music is the air she breathes. And the malaprops make me want to fucking scream. I wonder if she even knows what that word means. Well, it's literally not that. And then he talks about, oh my God.
What does he talk about? Keep going.
Oh, just all the things. This is called The Night Josh Tillman Came to Our Apartment.
Yes. Listen, that album, like,
it's
healed me at one of the darkest moments of my life. like darkest moment of my life, I found that album, and I swear it like that album has such a special place in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's such
fucking
a good
love
one.
Father John Misty. Oh my god.
Father John Misty. He's brilliant, brilliant songwriter.
I know. He
Yeah.
really is.
There's
Anyway,
anyway.
there's so many different characters. I think we should start like naming the archetypes of the energetic archetypes. Like that is a type.
Because there's also we've talked about like the dominating type, right, where they're inserting their energy into everybody, but what about the people that are like a black hole, like those people where they
That
suck,
just like suck. Well, people call
but they're
those
not, it's not active.
energy vampires.
Yeah, and they like suck the energy in. And I learned early on that I was kind of a magnet for those types because I'm just like really empathetic and would give.
Mm.
And I had to learn to like make boundaries around like, you can't suck the life out of me. Like, I can't do it.
And I think that like people aren't typically like one or the other, right? Like I'm sure I've been an energy vampire in somebody's story.
Totally. And there's all like a need behind all this stuff. Like there's needs. I think when you're in that like that black hole energy thing, it's because like you're struggling. Like you need to be seen, or you need some support, or you're like trying to keep your head above water in some ways. And I think like I just think how our energy is reaching out and connecting to other people. We're trying to get like our needs met. Like we're just like trying to feel loved and seen, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. Also, I think it's really easy to forget that like two energies come together to create a dynamic. You know what I mean? Because we've all experienced somebody where we're like, oh, no, thank you. We are not meant to be friends.
The wrong way. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like the feeling is mutual, right? Like it's like both of us are like, oh, no, thank you. And so I think it's important to remember that like, I don't know, it's almost not like you can't just like label one person like one thing, because like quite frankly at the end of the day, like we have been all of those archetypes for someone else. Ultimately.
I like this idea
of
like creating names for these energetic archetypes. I like this.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
We're on to something.
We should do the really charismatic like life of the party archetype. I mean, life of the party. But like the life of the party typically is like, the one I'm thinking of is like super domineering and they're fun to have around, but sometimes if you always have them around, like nobody else gets seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, what kind of vibe are you going for? You know?
Right. Right.
I don't know. Yeah. I try really hard though to remember that like it's a dynamic and not just like when I perceive someone, I try to remind myself that other people don't perceive them the same way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're
like
perceiving them within your dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so
I like that.
I don't know. Because that's also really important and so hard to remember. We're so quick to be like, that person's a narcissist. That person's an energy vampire. And it's like, okay, well, maybe they are, but.
Yeah. I like that.
Anyway,
I know. I like this conversation.
This is helpful for me.
Yeah. And know what's interesting is I work with people who are navigating like big emotional things, where, vulnerability, doing stuff. And so I'm also like really thinking about how do I help guide energy into a place of like really that's conductive for growth ultimately, and you do a version of that as well, whether it's like there's like a goal, right? There's like a goal, like intentionality for the gathering, for the connection. And I have found just through doing this, just in general for a while, getting people to be really present is like kind of key. Especially if you're trying to like go deep or go somewhere or like really like do some emotional work. When people like are frayed out in this like frazzled like high beta thing, it's hard to like, because that energy is really like all over the place, and it's hard to create a container for that. And sometimes like when that's really big, I'm like, okay, word vomit, like let's go, like just get it all out, right? Because it's just fraying out.
Seriously.
but then other times, like I've had just, I've had really great experiences with people where I'm just like, like you seem overwhelmed. Let's just like breathe with me for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just like feel our bodies and like come back and like drop, and just doing that, like I do with my children, like let's just like
Mm-hmm.
take a couple breaths and like come here. And then when
Mm-hmm.
somebody like comes back, it's like literally like I feel like they come back into their body, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
start like doing stuff, and I've felt that too. Like I have had experiences where I feel like I have been not in my body, and I've had somebody help like ground me, back down
Hello.
into,
Yeah, you help me with that all the time.
yeah, being like really present. And because I think like when we're really disconnected, it feels crazy, and then when we come back into the moment, I think that's when it's so much easier to help curate some energetic space for somebody when they're like
Mm-hmm.
fully present.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And
that's a
knowing
great
like what
question.
helps you get there. No, it was good because it's also
Yeah.
knowing what helps you get there. Because for a long time, I think like for me, sometimes I need to like vent. Like I have to like just like fucking get it out. And only in like the last year have I realized that it's really helpful to be like, hey, Ben, I need to just I need to like, I need to yell.
Yeah.
And
To
it's not
define the
at
space.
you, but I
Yeah.
have to just like get it out. Can you like protect
Rage about
yourself a
something.
little
Yeah.
bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I can like remember to do that, it's like it goes so well because he's just
Yeah.
like he's like observing, but like almost like with some humor, just like yeah, get it out.
Yeah. Which is
But for
exactly
the
what you
longest
need.
time, I just yes, and for the long like you helped me with this because for the longest time, I just thought that that was always wrong, never allowed, never appropriate, just like bad.
Yeah.
And so I just like tried to stuff it until it would like explode,
Right.
right?
Right.
And now that I just like know I can do like some silly rants and like call you or like tell Ben to
Yeah.
project like put up a shield while I just rant a little bit. It's like so much better.
Yeah. Because it's like
And
good
usually
it's
we end up
cathartic for
laughing.
you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It's so
I
good. And then
usually
you can
laugh at
just
my
ask.
rants.
It's a way you're getting your needs met too, because you get to like you ask for consent, right? Like when
Mhm.
you like your awareness is there, like, can I have this thing? Like, can you give me this gift? And like I love doing it for you. I'm like, fucking go, go, go. I'm like cheering you on.
Yeah, it's a part
Yeah.
of me that's been really nice to like just like work with and integrate rather than
Yeah.
like I don't know
Yeah. Shove it away.
stuff until it comes out on its own because it
Pressure
comes out
cooker.
anyway.
One way or another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is
Uh,
interesting. I think this
I
is
want to
very
talk
much
more
where we
about
both
these
are at.
dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's give some thought
it's
to some creating some definition.
yeah. Let's have some vocabulary creation.
Yeah, because I think
Love
this is
that.
like a world we're both in a big way of just like
Mm-hmm.
constantly working with other people's energies and dynamics, and
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
and I think we both are wanting to be really effective in like the work we're
Mm-hmm.
doing with other people and have it be
And
um
getting them to think about it and bring awareness to it because that's how I
mhm,
learn too because if they're
yeah,
thinking about it bringing awareness to it and we're having conversations about it that's where we get new words that's where we get better ways of describing things
yeah,
it's like that's my favorite
I like
part
that.
about it so also because we've been talking a lot about this like what you're kind of alluding to and I think we should be kind of calling out and sharing with everyone is that you do mindset coaching and you have a 90-day program. It's not currently open. You're currently
Mhm,
working with a lovely batch of people, but it will
mhm.
be open in what, January?
January, yeah. There'll be
Yeah.
another go through. It's a 3 month, a 12-week program, and it's an opportunity to work with me one on one, which is like my favorite
That's
thing.
exciting. Yeah.
And it's been really impactful and dynamic, and it's just been such a joy to like go through with this group of people. And so, if you want to find out more about it, you can sign up for my newsletter on my website, which is masteryourfate90.com. And
Yeah.
you'll be the first to know then when the course opens back up if you would like to work with me. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been
Oh, I'm
really
so
great.
excited. It's
And
been,
it
I mean,
feels so,
people
yeah,
message me about it. They're like, oh my gosh.
it's
working
like,
with Emily because they like know we're friends, and so they're just like telling
yeah,
me about it, and I'm like, yeah,
I
I know.
love it.
It's
There's
pretty good,
just
isn't
like
it?
it feels so in alignment. Like all of it feels so in alignment, and I feel so grateful. And there's like, sometimes it's like you're going through life and you're like, why did this thing fucking happen to me? Or why did I have to go through that? Or why did I have to experience this? And there's certain things that just like feel like they don't make any sense. This, like the birth of this like program has been so much of things just like clicking into alignment and feeling so
Mm-hmm.
grateful for everything that's brought me up to this like moment so that I can like
Mm-hmm.
put this thing into the world. It's just been really amazing. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that. Check it out if you guys want more
Awesome. Well,
info.
thanks for
So
being here, guys.
yeah,
Again,
thanks
that's
for tuning in.
www.masteryourfate90.com
That's
and
it.
sign up for the newsletter and you'll get details.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time. Love you.
Yes. Love you. Bye.
Bye.